So, you probably heard on the news, Trapstar is shutting down. And I'm here to explain what in the heck is going on. Trapstar, if you're watching this video, you probably know what Trapstar is. You probably know who they are. They're a clothing brand company and they've been around for decades. And you've probably seen the news, you've probably seen the big shop that it's shutting down. Now, I've put a question mark on there because I really want to go into the details of what's actually happening. Because number one, it probably isn't going to shut down. Number two, I've heard a lot of people think and say that their clothing isn't in, they're not making as much, well, it's not in fashion or there's not as much demand. That's false, and I'll show you what's going on there. And I'm here to really go into the nitty gritty of what's actually going to happen next. So let's talk about it. Trapstar. So Trapstar isn't shutting down. The business is not going to close down. What's actually happened is that Trapstar is still trading. So they're still selling clothes, they're still advertising. At the time of this video, nothing has happened. But what is actually going to happen is they're actually going to enter into administration. But even then, at the time of this recording, they haven't even entered into administration officially yet. Right now, what's happened is that what the news is talking about is they've been seen on an insolvency marketplace. What is that? An insolvency marketplace is basically a place where people sell businesses. So right now, Trapstar are looking for a buyer. They're literally looking for somebody to come in and buy their business. They might not even go through, all the complicated routes and shutting down all of this stuff. They literally might just find a buyer. The current directors and owners might come in and they go straight out. But let's just go into a lot more detail into what's about to happen, next. So Trapstar's actually going to go into administration. All administration is look, most companies are run on debt. Most companies, they borrow money from somebody. And when you owe too much debt and creditors keep knocking on the door and say, hey, we haven't got our money yet, and the company isn't able to, pay their creditors back, this is when the creditors start putting pressure on the companies and they can actually force that company to go into administration. And when that happens, what happens is an LIP comes in to come and save that company. What's an LIP? An LIP is a licensed insolvency practitioner. Sounds fancy, sounds complicated. All that literally is an LIP is a company or group of people or a person that comes in to do three things, really. Do three, there's kind of three stages. Well, the main thing is they've come in to save the company. So an LIP is going to come in, and they may have already come in already. I just don't have that information at the time in this video. But right now, I actually assume that an LIP, a licensed insolvency practitioner, has now been tasked to come and save Trapstar. And they're going to try and save Trapstar in three stages. Number one, they're going to try and rescue them. So the first stage is, how can we rescue this company? Because the best way, because look, it's all about the creditors. It's all about who they owe debt to, the creditors. And the best way, and it's all about making the creditors happy. And just to go into a little bit of detail on creditors, the reason why creditors can really have so much power to get a company into administration and get it shut down and bring LIPs in is really because of one main creditor. And that creditor is HMRC. If you as a company owe taxes to HMRC, they're a creditor too. You owe them money, even though it wasn't borrowed money or debt, but you still owe the Queen, the King money. And HMRC is a preferential creditor. That just basically means that they're getting their money first. If there's any money in that company, they're getting first dibs straight away. And HMRC have a lot of power because they're backed by the King himself, His Majesty's Royal Revenue and Customs. That is who they're backed by. They are literally backed by the government themselves. So if anybody's going to get their money, it's HMRC. And so the first job and the first thing that an LIP is going to try and do is try and rescue the company. They're going to try and see, is there a way that we can make sure that trading can still continue? Is there a way that we can, rejig things? And because the worst thing that we can actually do is actually shut the company down completely. A lot of people think, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with my Trapstar hoodie? What am I going to do with my Trapstar coat? Hey, great news. You actually there's nothing to worry about. Like, your thing might not be worthless. Trapstar will probably still continue as a company. I actually believe so. Might not. I don't know for sure. But there's not actually too much that might happen, because the first thing that this LIP is going to do, and I'm going to tell you why I'm so confident on why Trapstar probably still going to continue. I'll get into it. But the first thing that they're going to try and do is they're going to try and rescue the company. They're going to do everything in their power to rescue the company, because that is the best thing for creditors. That's the best thing for everybody. If this can't happen and we can't rescue the company, what we will then do is do something called creditor negotiation. This is where we can go to all the creditors and say, look, we owe X. So Trapstar will go to their creditors and say they owe, let's say, for example, they owe their creditors 1.5 million. And they may have agreed that this 1.5 million needed to be paid over 3 years. And by the way, this might be a group of creditors. So, for example, it could be that there are, 10 different creditors and they owe them all 150k each. However, the maths might be, but we'll just put in it also. It might be, we'll just put in it cumulatively. So it might be a total of 1.5 million pounds, and they've agreed that they were supposed to pay it back over 3 years, but they've missed that term. They're now, it's now a year or two over. What they might agree now is this. They might say, hey, the LIP might come in and say, hey, look, this is Trapstar. This is the situation. We want to do what's best for everybody. So let's try and negotiate. And they might come in and the LIP may come in and negotiate on behalf of Trapstar and say, hey, let's do 1 million over 10 years. They might come in and say, hey, this company needs breathing room. Hey, look, we've looked into these companies' financials, and if you can just do this and rejig this, we can actually negotiate that you guys can still get some money, and we can do it over a longer time frame. They go back to the creditors might look at that, agree, Trapstar continues, done. But if that doesn't happen and the creditors do not want to negotiate, they're like, no, we don't want to wait, we don't want this 1 million, we don't want da-da-da. If they don't agree that creditor negotiation, then the third step that the LIP will come and do is they will come and distribute. What that basically means is Trapstar will get broken up. Trapstar will get broken up, and whatever assets that they have. So whatever assets that they have, they will break it up and start distributing those assets to whoever is a partaker in the company. First, that will be the creditors. Then that may be employees. Then that may be directors. But number one, it's always going to be creditors. So they will break it up. So imagine breaking up Trapstar into chunks. They'll break it up into chunks. Break it up into chunks. There's some clothing stock over here. There's some intellectual property over here. There's some IP here. There's some stock here. There's some, there's the social media page here. There's something here. There's some, what's it called now? Not plaintiffs, not panels. There's some, I forgot the word now, but, there's just some thing here, and it gets broken up. And let's say the value of what we have here is, because look, the thing is with the creditors, they might be like, look, we don't want to wait 10 years. We want our money now. So it could literally mean that broken up is 800k, broken up. We can get that now, sold quickly, and the creditors get their money, and they just want to be done with it. They just want to be done with it. Could be more, could be less, but I'm just giving an example. This is what's happening to Trapstar. This is what's going to happen if they're going down this route. This is what we're probably looking like. Now, let's go into like the nitty-gritty. I've spoken a lot more theoretically, because I just wanted you to understand. But let's talk more about like what's actually going on. Like I've looked into the, the company's house records. I've looked into their company, balance sheets and things like that. And let's actually look at what's actually going on. So the reason why Trapstar is actually shutting down is because they don't have enough cash, as I've mentioned. They don't have enough cash. And when a company says they don't have enough cash, it basically means that they've borrowed so much from the creditors that the creditors don't trust them, that they don't trust them anymore. The same thing happened with PlantMade. PlantMade borrowed so much money that creditors didn't trust them anymore. By the way, this is just based off what I heard and saw, but PlantMade borrowed so much money that creditors don't trust them anymore. They can't get any more cash anymore, so now they don't have any more cash. Now, looking into the nitty-gritties of Trapstar, Trapstar's revenue has decreased from £40 million in 2022 to £17 million in 2024, and profit has gone down from £7.4 million in profit in, I think that was 2023, to £1.2 million in profit in 2024. And Trapstar's reasoning for why profit has decreased and why revenue has decreased is because of inflation. They believe that because inflation has gone up, costs, so the cost to produce their goods, the cost of everything has gone up, and that means that margins go down. So this is why they're in the predicament that they are. And what probably, and it's now, it becomes a loop, you see, because, let me show you, because what happens is it becomes a loop, because inflation goes up. Let's just say inflation goes up, costs go up, margins and because costs increase, then they have to increase the price of their goods because they need to keep the same profit margins or else they can't pay their employees. And when you increase the price sometimes, I put PR for price, what happens is revenue decreases because less people buy. And if less people buy, that means profit decreases. And then you just have this perpetual cycle of profit decreasing, you having to increase costs again, you having to, costs increase, price has to increase, revenue decreases, and then profits go down. And then now the worst thing is because profits are going down, now what you're doing is you're having to borrow more money. I just put here, you're having to borrow money. But then because now inflation is fighting against you, as you're borrowing money, inflation is fighting against you. As inflation goes up, then interest rates go down. Interest rates go up. And then that makes even the borrowing that you're doing even worse. Because, this is why companies have to be so careful. When it comes to borrowing money, you have to be so careful when you're borrowing money. You have to apply so much wisdom. Everybody just thinks that it's all about raising capital. No, it's about how do you manage that capital. That matters way more than everything else. How you manage your capital matters a lot more than how much capital you're able to raise. It's so easy to raise so much money. And this is why you see companies fail all the time. Companies like WeWork, I can list millions. I'll do a series on it. I'll speak on it. But now, earlier I mentioned that despite, Trapstar being listed on Trapstar basically being put up for sale, despite all of these things, I still believe that Trapstar is going to continue. Why? Because Trapstar probably will find a buyer. And the reason why is because of this right here. Despite profits going down, despite revenues going down, Trapstar still had a consistent returning customer base. What that basically means is that the same lot of people that bought their clothing last year are the same lot of people that bought their clothing this year. In fact, going into details, Trapstar still had 50% of their customers still buy and return their products the very next year. So it's 50% the year before of their customer base buying and ordering and buying, and that same 50%. In fact, going into the details, 50% of their customer base still bought the same level of sales value and number of orders year on year. So what that basically means is that, say Trapstar has, let's use a different color. So say Trapstar has, 100,000 orders and customers and things like that. You still had 50,000 customers still come in and spend, so sales value, they still spent about £300, and a number of orders, they still bought 4 items on average. That's what they had. And now can you see the issue in why revenue is decreasing? Because they said that their sales value has still stayed the same. So it means that people still want to buy Trapstar, but people don't want to spend more money. Sales value stayed the same, but they don't want to spend more money. So this is why revenue ends up going down and profits go down, especially profits. Profits go down. But the great thing is they still have a strong brand performance. That shows that they still have strong demand. And that's something that a buyer, and when I mean a buyer, I mean somebody that wants to come in and buy Trapstar. Buy Trapstar as a company. And yeah, and then obviously, you know, you've seen it happen all the time. And one person in particular that wants to buy it is Fraser Group. And I want to go into what is going to happen next for Trapstar. Who's going to buy it? Who is Fraser Group? Because Fraser Group it's already been reported that Fraser Group are in talks with buying Trapstar. And I want to talk about who Fraser Group are. What do they do? And I want to talk about pre-pack deals and what does it look like when a company gets bought? What's the nitty-gritty? I want to talk about Phoenix companies. I want to talk about how companies you can sell a company on this side and then Trapstar can rebuy the company. I want to talk about the different strategies that Trapstar can do in themselves to make sure that they can still continue. And why all this news, you see, that's how you know a lot of people just don't understand company structure. A lot of people just don't understand limited companies. Most of you still have a lot of people still have that employee mindset. It's an employee mindset. They don't really understand what the things look like at the top. How do you organize and restructure? Because look, at the end of the day, the LIPs that Trapstar have employed, they're very smart people. They know they've been in these situations thousands of times. They've seen what's the best strategy for companies to go. And that's why the first thing they're going to try and do is try and rescue the company. Let's go into that. Let's go into detail. This is the best case scenario for Trapstar right now. The worst thing they could do is it completely dissolve. Doubt that's going to happen, especially with the profits, especially with the revenue, especially with the strong customer demand. That's not going to happen. What's probably going to happen is this, and that is called a pre-pack sale. And I'm going to break that down to you in 5 steps. 1, the setup. 2, negotiation. The switch, the sale, and then the aftermath. First step, the setup. This is what Trapstar is going through right now. Right now, Trapstar are they've quietly contacted an LIP, a licensed insolvency practitioner. They've contacted them, they've put them up for sale, and they're looking for a buyer. The reason why they've done this is because it still allows them to trade. That's why Trapstar can still keep selling clothes. That's why Trapstar can still keep their websites and still stay online. Right now, Trapstar have contacted a licensed insolvency practitioner. They've let them know that, look, we're probably going to go insolvent. Can you help us make a sale? 1, the setup. 2, negotiation. Once a buyer is found, now contracts can get sorted. Once a buyer is found, contracts can get sorted, and they can start negotiating about how much they're going to get bought for and what they're going to take from them. And look, the main things that are going to be negotiated in this is the profitable parts of the company. This is really what any buyer is going to be interested in. They're going to be interested in what are the profitable parts of the company? What's still making money? These are things like the website, any intellectual property they might have. So for Trapstar, that's things like their logo, any kind of, designs. That's the name itself, Trapstar, which is trademarked. These are the profitable parts of the company. You could even say some staff as well. Even any contracts they may have with suppliers. Those links that they have with suppliers. These are the profitable parts of the company, and this is what the buyer is going to try and negotiate with Trapstar to get. Because there are also unprofitable parts of the company, and those are things that they don't want. Those are things that are going to actually take up a lot of money. But the focus for the for the buyer, whoever's going to come in, are going to be those profitable parts. Now, there is a buyer that's in talks in question, and that's Fraser Group. And Fraser Group are known. The guy who owns it, I forgot the guy's name now. Mike Ashley. Mike Ashley. He is known for buying, failing companies, rejigging them, and then making them profitable. He's bought things like, he's either bought whole or bought parts of Slazenger. Anywhere from Slazenger. He's even got parts in Boohoo. He's most known for Sports Direct. That's his big company that he owns. Even House of Fraser. Etc, etc. So you can see that his actual speciality is buying clothing companies, apparel companies, design companies, buying them for cheap, rejigging them, and then selling them on. Now, the third step, this one's exciting. It's the switch. Let me really wipe this whole board out because I need you to explain what the switch is in a company. This is what I really want to explain the switch. So, let's say, for example, we have Trapstar here, and we have Fraser Group here. And then we have two parts of the company. We have profitable Trapstar here with a T. And then we have unprofitable Trapstar here with a T. This is the part that's making them lose money. This is the part, guys, ladies and gentlemen, this is the part that owes all the creditors. This is the part with all the debts. This is the part with the name, with the IP. This is the part with this is the part of the name with the intellectual property. This is the profitable part, this is the unprofitable part. What is now going to happen is Trapstar gets split up into two parts, a profitable part and an unprofitable part. Fraser Group will come in and buy the profitable part of the company. And then the sale happens, Fraser Group buys the profitable part of the company, and then the unprofitable part, this is the aftermath, gets dissolved. And then it gets dissolved, and that's it really, and that just gets dissolved and it's done. This is how pre-pack sales are done. This is how companies move. I just wanted to explain it in the most simplest way possible without too much jargon and things like that. This is literally what's about to happen. The profitable part of Trapstar is going to be bought. The unprofitable part is going to get dissolved and just get done away with. And essentially the creditors there and things like that. Not all the creditors will be made whole and things like that, but this is business. This is how businesses can continue. This is how businesses can keep going. Now, I want to speak a little bit about why this is so beneficial. Let's talk about it. I want to talk about why is this so beneficial. So there are 3 reasons why pre-pack sales are so good. Number 1, it preserves business. If Trapstar was to actually go through liquidation and actually go through being dissolved, and if people had a brand that, see, this is why whenever you see, guys, this is why you need to understand why in 2008 banks were bailed out by the government. Because the worst case scenario for any successful business, especially any successful business, is liquidation. Companies like Trapstar, they are helping the economy so much because they provide jobs. They are helping the economy. The worst case, and banks, that's why I use the example of banks. The worst case scenario is that they go under. So it preserves a business. It preserves a business's reputation. Once this pre-pack deal is done, Trapstar continues. You'll forget about this. You'll forget that there was a time where Trapstar almost went under. It will just be a time. If in 20, 30 years' time, Trapstar continues, this will never be a thing. And the thing is, almost every successful company have at one point or another, or not almost every, but many successful companies have gone through a process like this, where they have almost been liquidated, they've owed a lot of their debtors, and they've had to sell the unprofitable parts and keep the profitable parts and keep going. It's a strategy. It's just a strategy that businesses do. This is how you operate as a business. So this is great because it preserves the business. And businesses are how an economy runs. The only way economies grow and strive is through business and trade. 2, it saves jobs. When a buyer comes in to buy those parts of a business, usually the jobs come with it. Because the employees and the staff are obviously essential to, the day-to-day running of that company. So it means that jobs get preserved. And again, that's great for the economy. Because if we have jobs not getting saved, it means people don't have any money, and that might mean homelessness. And it costs a lot more money for the government to keep homelessness away than for the government to than for people just to be in jobs. It costs so much money to, stop homelessness and benefits and all of these stuff. So it's just best if people just keep jobs and save jobs. This is why pre-packs are done. And finally, it's a smooth transition. When Trapstar do find a buyer, it will happen in a matter of minutes or hours, no more than a day. It will just be swoosh, new company bought, Fraser Group owns the new company, Trapstar continues, old company has been liquidated and dissolved, nothing happens. Nothing happens. Everything goes by. The other one will be dissolved, and then those parts will be liquidated. So the unprofitable parts, the credits of the debt, that will be liquidated. Whatever unprofitable parts that are there will be, passed to the creditors and things like that, and we move on. This is business. This is how it's done. This is how